Are you building a new construction home or thinking of building one, and you want to know what to expect during your pre-drywall walkthrough? Or maybe what's the difference between an inspection and a walkthrough? Or should you get your own third-party inspector?
Well, stay tuned in this video because we're going to explain some terms, provide you some tips for your pre-drywall walkthrough, and we're going to give examples of what we looked for during our walkthrough of our new custom home.
All right, stay tuned. Hello, successful people. Welcome back to the Iron Fire Success Channel.
The channel where we give you the information, motivation, and inspiration you need to overcome obstacles to achieve your goals and your dreams.
I'm DK.
And I'm Mo.
Thank you to our subscribers. We really appreciate your support.
And if you are new to our channel, welcome.
Let's get into today's video, which is all about the pre-drywall walkthrough. For starters, I'm going to describe what's the difference between a pre-drywall inspection and a walkthrough. A pre-drywall inspection is something that's done by a licensed and certified inspector. Sometimes it's more than one inspection because it might be an inspection done by someone who's familiar with the exterior, or it could be somebody inspecting electrical or just framing. Talk to your builder and ask whether they're hiring an independent inspector or inspection company, or whether the project manager is going to be the inspector. But you, as the customer, aren't going to know what is appropriate as to building codes and standards like an inspector. You're doing a walkthrough. On your walkthrough, you're going to look around and look for things like framing issues. You're going to look whether the switches are in the right spot and control the right lights. You're going to be looking to see if outlets are in the right place. And the way you're going to do that is by familiarizing yourself with your home's electrical plan and framing plan so that you know what you asked for and you know what it's supposed to look like. That's actually tip number one. Familiarize yourself with your home's plans and get in there in advance of your pre-drywall walkthrough if you can. That way you can notice things yourself and bring them up to your project manager in advance. The second thing I'd like you to do as a tip is, if you're not, be familiar with what electrical plans look like. A lot of people don't take the time to do this, and they don't actually make decisions about their own electrical plans. They leave it up to the builder. It's something that's sometimes not even brought up until you're already at the design center and nobody had a chance to think about it. Go back and watch our 3-part video series. It won't take long. It's how to make your own electrical plan. It's how to make your own low voltage plan, and we give you examples of how we did this for our house. You might not have to do it like we did unless you're doing a custom build, but at least it would give you the knowledge to be able to have input into where you want things located and what you want those switches to control and what kind of low voltage placement do you want in your home. The more educated you are, the better it's going to be for you during your pre-drywall walkthrough. That takes me to another tip. Bring your home's plans with you. Bring the layout and the framing plans. You know, in our house, there were 2 small walls in the kitchen that weren't actually added during the framing stage like they were supposed to, and they were added later. There are things like positioning of pendant lights in the ceiling that we measured, and because we got in there in advance and we knew weren't in the right spot. That brings me to my next tip, which is bring a tape measure, right? Because you're going to want to know that things are in the proper place. Maybe that, like, our fireplace was too high on the wall. Our pendant lights, like I said, weren't the right distance apart. Bring that tape measure and measure it yourself, so that way you don't have somebody close up the walls and then you find out that you need to put something in a different spot. That brings me to tip number 5. I think it's 5, maybe it's 4. Anyway, it's to take pictures and videotape what you're looking at so that you know where things are. Now, we found that taking video is actually more helpful because we get an orientation of where we are in the house. taking pictures of walls and rooms, after the fact, we didn't think we were going to know what we were looking at, a year or so later. So make sure you take pictures. Now, we're going to show you some video of the kinds of things we looked at during our pre-drywall walkthrough. And we're also going to come back after that and talk about what are some of the things you should consider if you're going to hire your own inspector to do the pre-drywall inspection. Here we go. The pre-drywall walkthrough is a very important stage in the development of your new construction home, because this is where you have to meet with your project manager and review all of the electrical, HVAC, and plumbing that has been done in the home so far. And as you guessed, that is critical because you do not want for them to have to come and bust open your walls to install or move anything after that's done. If you look at our video on electrical planning and what we've done, that will review the electrical choices we made regarding the switches, the outlets, things that'll be on automatic switches, the placement of lights and ceiling fans, because all of that needs to be done before they seal up the walls. For an example, you see this here where you have this multiple switch casing. When we did our drywall walkthrough with our project manager, we stopped while he had the schematic for the house, and so did we. And we reviewed all of these wires, as you see, that are going into the ceiling and where each one of those 4 switches will then control. Let's just stop and take a look at this blessing that we have for our house. Okay, so as I was saying, that we had to look at every switch and every outlet, make sure it's in the right place, make sure that there's no outlet or switch that we paid for that isn't there, and make sure that the correct kind of casings are there to hold ceiling fans and to hold lights in the ceiling. One of the things that we also talked about was the fact that, let me see if you could see this, certain outlets are placed there a certain distance away from each other based on the building code of wherever it is you live. So there are situations, and I'll show you one, where we asked for additional outlets, but here we are in the pantry. And now I realize that we didn't need to do that. You see there's 4 really close together because there would have been 2 anyway. But we did not know that there was a certain requirement by code for them to be placed together, or else we would not have paid for the additional 2 outlets. Here's also a situation where you see we have an outlet there next to what would be the toilet. Your community or regulations for where you live may have requirements for how far the outlet is from a wet area, because that's near the shower. So we went over all of this with the project manager. In our previous video where we showed you what was new, we showed that these little walls have been placed. There's one to the left and one to the right of this area that would be the sink. And as you could see, there's now outlets and switches that are here in the walls that weren't there before, as well as a set of switches on this piece of wall that's going to control the lights in the dining area as well as the kitchen. Go over all of that. Another thing to go over is if you have, you see here, this 5-light pattern. If you have any pendant lights or any specialty pattern like that, make sure you measure how far each one is apart, because we are learning that that level of detail may not be included in the drawing that told the people where to place these things. So you need to make sure that all of that is the way that you want it. Also, for example, pre-drywall fireplace, make sure that it is the appropriate distance from the bottom of the wall and the top. This one is in the correct place. I'll show you right quick what happened in our master bedroom, where, if you can see this, you see how high that is from the bottom of the floor? Now, for us to have it that high and a TV over it would work, but go back and check your plans, because what we asked for was for a tile to surround the fireplace and for there to still be enough room to put the TV over it. So just visually eyeballing this, there's no way to have like 12 or 13-inch tiles above this fireplace, which would pretty much be the same size as this board, and you still get a TV up there. The TV would be on the ceiling. So that's why where you see this here that says lower 12.5 inches, because during our pre-drywall walkthrough, we noticed that and said that's going to need to be 12.5 inches lower. Another thing we measured was the distance between any pendant lights. You see on the left and right, there's those two blue caps. So what we did is we came and measured how long across a king-size bed would be to see if the way these are positioned, would there be enough room to have a king-size bed in between and have enough space on the left and right for them to be the same distance away from the edge of the bed. The one on the left side, we're leaving, that makes sense. But this on the right side, we needed to be moved over just a little bit, so that way it is equal distance between both sides of the bed, or from both sides of the bed. So that has not been done yet. As you can see, it's still way left. Also, make sure that the outlets that are supposed to be there are there, like I said before. In a previous video, here we are in the utility room. You see an outlet there now on the left-hand side of this wall, which is going to be underneath a counter. In our previous video, this outlet here was not there. Only the one to the right of it was there, and we had to notice that and say something and point to where in our documents it shows that's supposed to be there. Here I am in a master bathroom rather. You see those two outlets I'm looking at? They're supposed to be one outlet extra. It should be 3, not 2. And on this side, you see 1, there should be 2, not 1. So the onus is going to be on you to make sure that you're checking these things with your project manager, because you don't know what plans they're looking at or not, or what they just forget and overlook, and you have to say something. This light at the end of the hallway that I'm showing you now needs to be moved over to the left because it's not in the middle of the hallway. So these are some of the things that we caught during our pre-drywall walkthrough that we had to let our project manager know need to be fixed. After we know that they've been fixed, one of the things we asked for is to come back out here and take a look again to make sure it's right before the walls are closed up. There may be other things you notice that are wrong that need to be corrected, but it may not impact drywall. I know if you're following our channel, you've seen this before, where there's this gap on the floor, right? That there's like cement missing. So they're gonna have to reframe this door in order to be able to pull it in to fill up that gap. So there's things like that that might need to be fixed, but are not necessarily going to impact their ability to do drywall. So you want to focus on electrical, plumbing, make them show you where all the switches lead to, what it turns on, a fan, a ceiling light, and make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Should you hire your own inspector or not? Mo and I are on the fence about this right now because while all the advice says you should do it, we don't know anybody who's done it and what happened. So if you have done that, drop some comments, share with the community. How did it work out? What happened? Here's some of the things that we're considering. First of all, if we hire an inspector and our inspector finds things, is the builder going to pay to do that, or are we going to have to pay to do that? A second thing to think about is, like I mentioned earlier, does your builder hire a third-party inspection company that you think you can trust, or is your project manager doubling as the inspector, in which case you feel like you need your own, advisor in that regard to the inspection? The other thing we're thinking about is, if we hire an inspector, the inspector finds something, and we go to the builder to do it, are we going to be assessed a delay? Now, if you're doing a semi-custom, this might not come up, but in a custom build, every time the customer asks the builder to do anything that wasn't part of the original plan, they're going to say you're putting in a change order, which has a fee associated with that, and they're going to say any changes make delays of at least 14 days or up. So we're not sure whether it's worth it to do that and then have our build take longer, because anything that delays the build means prices for the things that they have to pay for after this point also go up. So it's a little risky. We also don't know if inspectors itemize, what's the stuff that you're seeing that needs to be done by code versus what's the stuff the inspector says is nice to do, but not absolutely necessary. And lastly, we also don't know if you have a list from your inspector, but the builder doesn't do all of those things. If later on during the warranty period you call up because something isn't working right, is the builder going to say they're not responsible for fixing it because you knew about it up front, but you still signed off on the pre-drywall? There's just, some of these things might be based in reality. We don't know. But those are some of the things that we are thinking about of whether or not we're going to hire a third-party inspector. Not sure how that would work out in the end, and I guess you'll stick around in this channel and you'll find out. But like I said, if anybody knows and anybody who's done it, please drop a comment and let us know how it's worked for you. We hope you found this information helpful. Please give us a like and subscribe for more videos about new home construction and model home tours.
And check out our blog at www.ironfiresuccess.com.
And as always,
until next time, be peaceful and count your blessings.